What happens when an active shooter walks into a gym full of Marines and the old towel guy doesn't run? If you love stories of quiet heroes, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Gold's Gym, Oceanside, California, 3 miles from Camp Pendleton. Saturday afternoon. Over 50 people inside. Frank Morrison was the joke. 74 years old, towel attendant, wiped machines, emptied trash, shuffled slowly, shoulders hunched, gray hair thin, hands trembling when he folded towels. For 10 years, everyone agreed Frank was a fossil. The young Marines were brutal. Lance Corporal Derek Mitchell, 23. "Yo, fossil, you gonna croak today?" His squad laughed loud. Corporal James Riley grabbed towels without looking. "Move it, old man." Manager Todd Stevens wasn't better. "Frank, you're too slow." Third complaint this week. Frank's response: "Quiet, head down." "Yes, sir. Sorry, sir." What they didn't know, Frank Morrison had been Sergeant Major Frank the Hammer Morrison, Marine Corps Martial Arts Program Chief Instructor, Quantico. 30 years, he'd trained over 10,000 Marines in hand-to-hand combat. Vietnam, Grenada, Panama. 3 wars. A legend. His wife died 6 years ago. Kids lived far away. The empty house was killing him, so Frank took the gym job. Not for money, for noise, for people. Something to do besides remember. He never mentioned Quantico. Didn't want attention, just wanted to wipe machines and go home. The shuffle was real. Replaced knees, bad back, arthritis, but beneath it 30 years of training remained. Muscle memory doesn't disappear. That Saturday, 15-20 hours, Frank was in the supply closet organizing towels. The gym was packed. Outside, a man loaded a rifle in his trunk. Mitchell walked past. "Hey, fossil, try not to die in there." His squad laughed. Frank kept folding, slow, methodical. At 15-23 hours, the front door opened. The man walked in, body armor, AR-15. He raised the weapon. Everybody down. First shot into the ceiling. Screaming. Panic. I said down. Second shot. Mirror wall shattered. Frank heard the shots. 2 rifle cracks. AR platform. His hands stopped shaking. His back straightened. Sergeant Major Frank Morrison hadn't heard gunfire in 16 years. But he hadn't forgotten what to do when it started. The gym floor was chaos. 53 people screaming, running, crawling. The shooter fired again, into the front desk. Nobody moves. People froze. Frank was at the supply closet door, 40 feet from the shooter. The man stood near the entrance, rifle sweeping across the gym, blocking the main exit. Mitchell and his squad were flat on the floor, no longer cocky, terrified. The shooter moved forward. "Where's Todd Stevens?" Todd behind the desk, shaking. "I'm here." "Stand up." Todd stood, hands raised. "Please. You fired my brother 6 months ago. Derek Williams. Remember?" Todd went white. "That was policy. He failed the drug test. He killed himself last week. Hung himself. Because you took his job. I'm sorry. These people didn't." "I don't care." The shooter aimed at Todd's chest. Frank moved. Not fast, but precise. He stepped out, into the gym. The shooter's back was to him. 40 feet. Frank moved along the wall, using equipment for cover. Treadmills, weight racks. 30 feet, 25, 20. His breathing was controlled. Tactical breathing. The same pattern he'd taught 10,000 Marines. 15 feet, 10. Corporal Riley saw Frank moving. His eyes went wide. What the hell was the old towel guy doing? The shooter's finger moved to the trigger. Frank covered the last 10 feet in 2 seconds. His right hand grabbed the rifle barrel, pushed it up and left, away from Todd. The shooter pulled the trigger reflexively, shot into the ceiling. Frank's left hand came around, palm strike to the temple. The shooter's head snapped sideways. Frank stepped in, hip to hip, swept the front leg. The man went down hard. Frank kicked the rifle away. 3 feet. The shooter tried to roll. Frank dropped his knee onto the man's chest. 200 pounds of pressure. Frank's left hand went to the throat, thumb and fingers on the carotid arteries. Precise pressure. The shooter's eyes went wide, then unfocused. 8 seconds from contact to unconsciousness. Frank held 3 more seconds. Released. Checked the pulse. Breathing. Just out. Frank stood slowly, his knees screaming. 53 people staring, silent, shocked. Mitchell's mouth was open. What the? Frank picked up the rifle, checked the chamber, ejected the magazine, cleared it, made it safe. He looked at Todd. Call 911. Active shooter down. Todd stared. Now, Todd. Todd grabbed his phone. Frank looked at the Marines. You four, get up. Form a perimeter. Nobody leaves. Mitchell didn't move. Frank's voice changed. Command voice. I said get up, Marine. All four scrambled up. Riley stared at Frank. Who are you? Frank sat on a weight bench, his body sending him the bill. Quantico. Long time ago. Sirens in the distance. 6 Oceanside police officers burst in, weapons drawn. Police, nobody move. Todd pointed at the unconscious shooter. He's down. That man stopped him. He pointed at Frank. Officers secured the shooter. Handcuffs. Checked for weapons. A sergeant approached Frank, saw the rifle. Sir, step away from the weapon. Frank stood slowly, hands visible. Weapon is clear. Magazine ejected. Chamber empty. The sergeant blinked. You cleared it? Yes. Are you law enforcement? Retired military. Another officer checked the shooter. Breathing. Unconscious. Redness on the neck. The sergeant looked at Frank. You took him down? Yes. How? Frank's knees gave out. He sat back down, carefully. 40 minutes later, Detective Lisa Ramirez arrived. Homicide. Mid-40s. Sharp eyes. She approached Frank. Mr. Morrison? Yes, ma'am. Detective Ramirez. I need your statement. She sat beside him. Walk me through it. Frank did. Short sentences. I was in the supply closet. Heard shots. Assessed the situation. Disarmed the suspect. Restrained him. Made the weapon safe. Ramirez wrote it down. You disarmed an armed suspect. You're 74. Correct.
Where did you learn that?
Marine Corps. When did you serve? 1966 to 1996, 30 years. Her pen stopped. 30 years. What rank? Sergeant Major. What was your MOS? 0917. Emptied Instructor. Ramirez looked up. Marine Corps Martial Arts Program? Yes, ma'am. You were an instructor? Chief Instructor. Quantico. 30 years. She stared at him, then at the scene. The rifle. The unconscious shooter. Back to Frank. You taught hand-to-hand combat. Yes, ma'am. To how many Marines? Approximately 10,000. Ramirez closed her notebook. Mr. Morrison, you just saved 53 lives. Frank said nothing. She stood. We'll need a formal statement, but you're not in any trouble. This was clearly self-defense, defense of others. Understood. An EMT approached again. Sir, I really need to check you. Frank finally nodded. Let them check his blood pressure, heart rate, both elevated but stable. Lance Corporal Mitchell approached slowly, stood at attention. Sir. Frank looked up. At ease, Marine. Mitchell relaxed slightly. Sir, I need to apologize for everything. The names, the disrespect. I didn't know. Frank cut him off. You didn't know because I didn't tell you. Forget it. Sir, what you did, that was incredible. That was training. 30 years of it. Riley joined them. Sir, can I ask, why didn't you say anything? Why let us treat you like that? Frank was quiet for a moment. Because I didn't need you to know. I just needed something to do. Mitchell looked confused. But you're a legend. You could have what? Walked around with my chest puffed out, told war stories. Frank shook his head. I'm 74. My wife is dead. My kids don't call. This job gave me a reason to leave the house. That's all I needed. Riley and Mitchell exchanged looks. The gym was clearing out. Witnesses released. Crime scene tape up. Todd approached, shaking. Frank, I don't know what to say. Don't say anything. You saved my life. Frank stood slowly. You should close the gym for a few days. Get counseling for the staff. This kind of thing leaves marks. Todd nodded. Will you come back to work? Frank looked at him. Do you still need someone to wipe down machines? Yes. But Frank, after this, then I'll be here Monday. The story hit the news by evening. Elderly gym employee stops active shooter. Local stations, then national, CNN, Fox, all of them. Frank didn't give interviews. Refused every request. No comment. Just doing what needed to be done. But the Marines at Camp Pendleton heard. Word spreads fast on a military base, especially when it involves one of their own. Sunday morning, Frank's doorbell rang. He opened it to find a Marine in dress blues, Major Andrew Foster, battalion commander, Sergeant Major Morrison. Frank blinked. Nobody had called him that in 16 years. Just Frank now, sir. Foster smiled. May I come in? Frank let him in, offered coffee. They sat in the living room. Foster got straight to it. Sir, I reviewed your service record. 30 years at Quantico, MC-MAP chief instructor. 3 combat tours. Your record is... Frank said nothing. I have 400 Marines in my battalion. Young, most of them straight from School of Infantry. They need advanced hand-to-hand training. Foster leaned forward. Would you consider coming to Pendleton as a contractor? Teach MC-MAP to my Marines? Frank was quiet. I'm 74. You took down an active shooter yesterday. That was muscle memory. Exactly. That's what we need. You have more muscle memory in your little finger than most instructors have in their entire body. Foster pulled out a folder. This is a contract. Part-time. Twice a week. Good pay. You'd be training the next generation. Frank stared at the folder. Why me? Because yesterday you proved that age doesn't matter when you have training. My Marines need to see that. Need to learn from that. Foster stood. Think about it. I'll be back Tuesday for your answer. He left the folder on the coffee table. Frank sat alone, staring at it. Monday morning, Frank arrived at Gold's gym at 0600. Early, before anyone else. He was wiping down the treadmills when the door opened. Lance Corporal Mitchell, alone. Sir, didn't expect to see you here. Still have a job to do. Mitchell walked over. Sir, can I ask you something? Go ahead. Would you be willing to teach me? Real MC-MAP, not the basic stuff they teach at SOI. Frank looked at him. Why? Because yesterday I froze. I'm an infantry marine and I froze. You didn't. I want to learn how to be like that. Frank was quiet. Then, it's not about not freezing. It's about training so much that your body knows what to do even when your brain is screaming. Then teach me that. Frank nodded slowly. Okay. Be here tomorrow at 0500, before the gym opens. Bring Riley and the others if they want to learn. Mitchell's face lit up. Yes, sir. We'll be here. Tuesday morning, 0500 hours. Mitchell, Riley, and 2 other Marines were waiting outside the gym when Frank arrived. He unlocked the door, led them inside, cleared space in the weight room. First lesson, Frank said. MC-MAP isn't about strength. It's about leverage, timing, and commitment. Size doesn't matter. Age doesn't matter. Technique matters. For the next hour, Frank taught them basic strikes, disarms, chokes, the same techniques he'd taught 10,000 Marines before them. He moved slower than he used to. His knees ached. His back complained. But his hands were steady. His voice was clear. The instructor was still there. At 0600, the gym opened. Regular members started arriving. Todd saw the Marines training with Frank, walked over. Frank, is this, should I? It's fine, Todd. We're done for today. The Marines thanked him, headed out. Mitchell lingered. Sir, Major Foster came to see you, didn't he? How'd you know? Word gets around. Are you going to take it? The teaching job at Pendleton? Frank looked at the gym, the machines he'd wiped down for 10 years, the towel station, the supply closet. Then he looked at Mitchell. Young, eager, ready to learn. Yeah, Frank said quietly. I think I am. Wednesday, Frank drove to Camp Pendleton, met with Major Foster, signed the contract. Starting next week, MC-MAP instructor, twice a week, teaching advanced hand-to-hand combat to Marines. He kept his job at Gold's gym, 3 days a week, not for the money, for the routine, for the noise. But everything changed. The Marines who'd mocked him now asked for advice. Sir, can you show me that disarm technique? Sir, how do you stay calm under pressure? Frank answered their questions, showed them techniques. Patient, professional. Todd never complained about his speed again. Neither did the staff. The fossil Frank nickname disappeared, replaced with Sarge or Sergeant Major. Frank didn't ask for the change, didn't demand respect, but he got it anyway. Thursday morning, a van pulled into the parking lot. Side door opened. Out stepped a man in a wheelchair. Mid-50s. Strong upper body, missing both legs below the knee. He wheeled himself into the gym, looked around, saw Frank wiping down the leg press machine. Sergeant Major Morrison? Frank turned, looked at the man. Something familiar. Do I know you? The man wheeled closer. Lance Corporal James Hughes. Quantico, 1988. You were my MC-MAP instructor. Frank's eyes widened. Hughes, I remember. You had terrible footwork. Hughes laughed. You made me do duck walks for an hour. Fixed your footwork, though. Yes, sir, it did. Hughes gestured to his missing legs. Iraq, 2005. IED. I got out. Struggled for years. Couldn't find purpose. He looked at Frank. I heard what you did Saturday. Saw it on the news. Decided I needed to see you, to say thank you. For what? For teaching me that strength isn't about your body, it's about your mind. What you did Saturday at 74 reminded me of that. Hughes extended his hand. You saved my life in 1988. You just didn't know it. Frank shook his hand. You doing okay now? Better. Working with veteran organizations, helping other amputees transition. Hughes smiled. Your lesson stuck, Sarge, even after all these years. They talked for 20 minutes, catching up, sharing stories. Then Hughes left. Frank stood in the gym, alone, thinking about Hughes, about Mitchell, about the 10,000 Marines he'd trained over 30 years. He'd thought his teaching days were over, thought the hammer was retired. But Saturday proved different. The training never left. The lessons never expired. Friday afternoon, Frank was at the towel station when a woman approached, mid-40s, professional clothing. Mr. Morrison? Yes. I'm Sarah Chen. I was here Saturday, on the treadmill when the shooting started. Her voice cracked. I wanted to thank you. I have 2 kids. Because of you, I get to see them grow up. Frank didn't know what to say. I just did what needed to be done. You did more than that. You risked your life. She handed him an envelope. This is from me and 12 other members who were here Saturday. We wanted to do something. Frank opened it. Inside was a check. $5,000. Ma'am, I can't accept. Yes, you can. Use it for something that matters to you. She smiled. Thank you, Mr. Morrison, for everything. She left before he could argue. Frank stared at the check. $5,000. From people whose names he didn't even know. That evening, Frank sat in his living room. The house Margaret had filled with life. Now quiet, empty, but different than before, not quite as heavy. He looked at the photos on the mantel. Margaret smiling. Their wedding day. Their kids as children. He picked up his phone, scrolled to his daughter's number. Emily. She lived in Virginia. They hadn't spoken in 4 months. He called. 3 rings. Dad? Hey, Emily, it's me. Dad, I saw the news. Are you okay? Why didn't you call? I'm fine. I wanted to hear your voice. They talked for an hour. Really talked. About the shooting. About Quantico. About Margaret. About the years Frank had spent silent and shuffling. Dad, why didn't you ever tell us about your work? About what you did? Frank was quiet. I thought it didn't matter anymore. That it was all behind me. It matters. It always mattered. Emily's voice was soft. I'm proud of you, Dad. I always have been. I just didn't know how to say it. After the call, Frank sat in the silence. But it wasn't the same silence as before. It was different, lighter. 6 months later, Camp Pendleton, METMAP training facility, 0600 hours. 30 Marines stood in formation, mixed ranks, lance corporals to staff sergeants, all volunteers, all here for advanced hand-to-hand combat training. The door opened. Sergeant Major Frank Morrison walked in. No shuffle, no hunched shoulders. He moved deliberately, carefully, but with purpose. Behind him, Major Foster. Attention. 30 Marines snapped to attention. At ease, Frank walked to the front. My name is Sergeant Major Frank Morrison. For the next 8 weeks, I'm going to teach you how to survive close-quarters combat. This isn't basic M-play map. This is the real thing. The techniques that work when everything goes wrong. He looked at the formation, saw young faces. Eager, nervous, ready. Some of you think I'm too old to teach this. Frank smiled. 6 months ago, I used these techniques to disarm an active shooter. At 74. So age isn't the issue. Training is. He gestured for them to spread out. First lesson. It's not about being the strongest. It's about being the smartest. Fighting isn't about strength. It's about timing, leverage, and commitment. For the next 2 hours, Frank taught, demonstrating techniques, correcting form, pushing them, the same way he'd done for 30 years. His knees ached, his back complained, but his voice was strong, his hands steady. Lance Corporal Mitchell was in the class. So was Riley. They'd requested the advanced training specifically to learn from Frank. At 0800, The session ended. The Marines filed out, exhausted, grateful. Mitchell stayed behind. "Sir, that was incredible. That was day 1. Wait until week 4. Riley joined them. "Sir, can I ask something?" "Go ahead."
Why did you come back? You could have stayed retired, quiet, but you came back.
Frank looked at them. 2 young Marines, the same age he'd been in Vietnam. "Because Saturday reminded me of something I'd forgotten. I'm not done teaching. As long as I can stand, as long as I can move, I can pass on what I know." He picked up his bag. "And maybe that's the point. Not the medals, not the wars, but making sure the next generation knows how to survive." He headed for the door, stopped, turned back. "And because sitting at home waiting to die isn't living, this is living, this is living." He left. Outside, the California sun was bright. Frank walked to his car, slower than he used to, but steady. His phone buzzed. Text from Emily. "Proud of you, Dad. Talk tonight?" Frank smiled, texted back, looking forward to it. He climbed in his car, drove back to Oceanside, to Gold's Gym. His afternoon shift started at noon. He still wiped down machines, still handed out towels, still worked the supply closet. But nobody called him Fossil Frank anymore. They called him Sarge, or Sergeant Major, or sometimes just Sir. And when new members asked the staff about the older guy cleaning equipment, they'd tell the story about the day an active shooter walked into Gold's Gym, about the 74-year-old towel attendant who took him down in 8 seconds, about the legend who'd been hiding in plain sight, wiping machines, folding towels, waiting for the moment when he was needed again. Frank Morrison taught Marines for 30 years that heroes don't wear capes, they wear uniforms. They serve quietly. They do what needs to be done. And when the moment comes, when lives are on the line, they step forward. Not because they're young, not because they're strong, but because they're trained, because they're ready, because someone taught them that age is just a number and courage doesn't have an expiration date. That's what Sergeant Major Frank the Hammer Morrison taught 10,000 Marines. And on one Saturday afternoon in Oceanside, he proved it one more time. If this story moved you, hit that like button. Subscribe for more quiet heroes. Thanks for watching.